before diagnosis. The lake is dead for a second time this January. And no matter how many geese lay their warm breast against the ice or fly across its hard chest, it doesn't break or sink or open up and swallow them. The ice is frozen water. There is no metaphor for exile. Even if these trees continue to shake the crows from their branches, my sister is still farther away from her mind than we are from each other, sitting on opposite ends of a park bench, waiting for the evening to swallow us whole. In the last moments of a depressive, a sun. In the last moments of a sun, my sister says a man is chasing a goose through the snow. I want to thank Bonk, Bonk 50. I feel like that should be like a mixtape, Bonk 50. I want to thank Nick for having me here, and Racine, you guys have been so welcoming. I enjoyed the downtown. I had to do a lap when we first got here to try to find parking, but we figured it out. And so I hope to just share a few poems with you tonight. And I won't do any explanation other than sort of what may be right on the surface that might help sort of understand the poems a little bit better. I think poets should just read poems. So that's what we're going to do. Cross country. When I ran, it rained niggers. Early in October. First creases of a flag-weary sky in which birds in flight slip through the breastbone of God and tear at the coarse threads that keep the morning knit tightly around his heart. What was it that they sang about the light? Their tongues, the thistles they plucked from the bitter bark of an all-thorn, then thrust into whatever god or good animal requires a piercing, a good eating. These blonde bodies thrashing about above me were death's idea of the morning passing. Here below this golden altar, the making and unmaking of my body. The kettle clank and souring sumac of a man yelling at the light, slipping in and out of my mouth. What name must I carry above the dust of this field? Bruised ear, blank body, purple tongue, bloody God bleeding, do you hear me? Dear piss and poison ivy, made pungent by the dew and morning sun rising, do you hear me? When I ran, it rained niggers. In a ditch along the road, a pair of wild boars, slain and laid tusk to tail, point as if required in two directions at once. Toward my body, pressing the last bits of a hunter's moon into the tar of this road, and away from the meadow red light coming up through the chaff, rising above this hectared field, and the man yelling, nigger, and the cicadas tuning up to tear the morning into tatters. Nigger in the squawk and clatter of a hen, complaining of a hand reaching below her bottom and removing the warm work of a cold night. Nigger in the reeds covering the muck of a beaver's hard birth. Nigger in the blue hour of a field once wet with the breath of a lone horse cracking along its flanks. Nigger in the fog lifting from this field in the stillbirth it reveals. Nigger in the running, in the bog at the end of the road, in the war and in between the wars. Nigger in the pink salt and eyelashes of a woman I love, her mouth pulling water from behind my knee, pulling, pulling, pulling. Think, nigger is the God of our brief salvation. Nigger in a body falling toward a horizon, nigger in the twilight that is no longer a twilight, but a black creek fumbling along the spine of a boy who is running through a city that is running out of water. Even the lions have left for the mountains. This is America speaking in translation, in glitter, in gold grills and fried chicken. Auto-tune this if you must. Cher will be singing in the brush of static from the attic radio, believing in love after love or life after love, despite the impure thoughts of evening, despite the rain soaking the red head of a red bird, now dead in a puddle that refuses to reflect the moon. This next poem is for Emmett Till. It's called The Mayor of Money. Another dead mare waits in the shoals of some body of water, waits to be burdened, born into a foaming ocean where it might become food for whales or simply empty signifier. Hair latched to the sea's undulation like Absalom's beauty caught in the playful branches of a tree desiring union, entanglement, thick confusion. But not this mare. She does not get the luxury of a lyric, a song that makes our own undoing or killing sweet even as we go down into the fire to rise as smoke. This horse must lie eyes open among the stone and freshwater crawfish in Money, Mississippi. She must listen to the men's boots break the water as they drop a black boy's body near her head. Pick him up, only to let him fall there again, eye to eye with her, as though decaying is something that requires a witness. As though the mayor might say, on Tuesday after the rain fell, the boy's neck finally broke from the weight of the mill fan. Or the boy might say, no more. They part here, as the boy's carried back to town, and the horse stays. Because horses don't speak. Besides, this one's dead. So, yeah, this next one, no introduction. Maggot therapy. Not the debridement of the wound. The wedding dress decanted of the bones and snow-blown skin of a bride circling through the splinters of winter. The ash and orchard of a gray heaven surrounding the tumble of guests leaking out into the night to wish her sloughing off of dress and wound. Well, no, not this debridement, which is greeted with cake and symbol and the calling on of a mastering God, which is perhaps the dusk erasing itself from day, the healthy skin of night pulled taut over the bone clots of stars, the chronic fever of noon driven off like the fox to the farthest blue hills, the fever kept there, hidden, hot, and vigilant in the fox's mouth, which is perhaps the debridement I have been looking for, something that will linger inside a suicide and eat around the bullet still thrumming against the salt and clatter of a brother's brain, which is now below the bob and tether of an ocean that opens itself like a wound. Maggot, how lightly you travel through the ribs of beggars and barns, kings and convents. How often they've misnamed your benevolence. Teach me again that I do not own this body that walks me over this snow and cracked pavement. The winter light pulling at my bare ankles. Teach me what to do with the dead I carry in my mouth. Teach me to travel light with their bodies in my belly. This next poem is a bit of, I call it like an ekphrasis sort of mashup. And there was an exhibit at the Manil collection in Houston, Texas called Southern Charm. And it had all these photos, these civil rights photographs that were sort of civil rights photographs that you wouldn't normally associate with the civil rights movement. It's not like people getting shot with like cannons and hoses and things like that. It's these other photographs. And so I decided to do is sort of take all the different pictures that were on the wall and sort of give each picture a moment in the poem. And it was also my farewell to the South, because I saw it just as I was like leaving and coming to here, to Chicago, to the Midwest. I love the South. So this is called Southern Charm. Now begins the tradition of the fire hose. Please pay no attention to the flag disappearing into the mouth of a soldier's salute. The chickens goose-stepping in the backyard are prepared to peck each other to death. Charming little children in the rotunda of a state house holding sighs below signs, demanding the right to vote Yosemite Sam and James Brown into office. Bless your heart, bless your little heart. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Guilford County, 1962. In Baton Rouge, 1963, a boy prepares to be both ghost and savage hum. I have no way to explain this fondness for the rug of red clay against my tongue. Fondness for black men wearing a street raw below a pair of spiked heels, curtsy, and 5 o'clock shadow. In Atlanta, I am a green light along a corridor of house, broken homes. I refuse to explain the pageantry of healing a cut with a spider web and a few flakes of ash from a late winter fire. Sometimes my lover smears honey on the scars pocking my elbows, cheeks, knees. In a tabernacle meant for salvation, a little Hennessy and baby powder was all that could be found, and that already spilled onto the neck bones and shoulders of those offering themselves to the nearest tongue, willing to slide on the half moon of a hip, clothed in white. Wide white sails, wide white whales lurching down MLK on white walls just after Easter, and the dogwoods sin in the name of nectar. Help me, Holy Ghost, what's in your speaker box? The love below, the gospel of young money millionaires, maybe Faulkner or Chaucer. A parliament of fowl squabbling over the late afternoon sun that fills each black bird's fat throat. I refuse to explain the head and source of the South's temper. Oh, Hamlet, North Carolina, and the fallow winds loosening the topsoil of my lover's body. Oh, son of the mute sharecropper. Oh, bent guitar and shattered body at the foot of a mockingbird. What nation, what native land does nature salute? I'm going to read just 2 more poems. And so, yeah, I think I'll read Some Young Kings. This is another one of this is a poem I was trying to like, you ever get stuck as a poet or artist and you're like, I'm just stuck, I'm not doing this thing, and so you just like do something really sort of like, you wrench yourself out of control. This was my wrench out of control, but this was years ago, so it's probably not that out of control now. Now it's like, But it was actually, came out, it was a good poem. It's one of those MFA, MFA gets stuck in your crawl sort of poems, and so I got it out of my crawl and I just sort of wrote wildly, or as wildly as I could write at that time. So this is called Some Young Kings. There's a line out of a Basquiat painting where from Charles the First, and so I sort of warp that line. The Mike Tyson in me sings like a narwhal, minus the nasally twang of sleeping in a cold ocean. The unsightly barnacles latch to the mattress of skin just below my eye. The white horn jutting out from the top of my head. Oh, God bless us mutts, the basset bloodhound mulattoes, the pug mixed puppies left behind the dog pound cinder block walls as German shepherds, labradoodles, and Portuguese water dogs turn their inbred behinds and narrow backs at our small mouth blues. It's hard to smile with an ear in your mouth, 2 names and a daughter hanging by a thread from the railing of a treadmill. Oh, neck in North Carolina, and a white coat of paint for all the faces of my Negro friends hanging from trees in Salisbury, Greensboro, and Guilford County. The hummingbirds inside my chest with their needle-nosed pliers for tongues and hammer-heavy wings have left a mess of ticks in my lungs and a punctured lullaby in my throat. Little boy blue, come blow your horn. The cows in the meadow and Dorothy's alone in the corn with Jack, his black fingers, the brass of his lips, the half moons of his fingernails clicking along her legs until she howls, Charlie Parker, Charlie Parker, Charlie Parker. Oz is a man with a mute body on an HBO original show that I am too afraid to watch for fear of finding my uncle, or a man that looks like my uncle, which means finding a man that looks like me in another man's embrace, or slumped over a shiv made from a mattress coil and a bar of ivory soap. Most young kings return home without their heads. It's 1941 and Jack Johnson still loves white women, and my mother won't forgive him. If she can't use your comb, don't bring her home, my mother says in 1998. It's 2009 and I still love white women. Charlie Parker, Charlie Parker, Charlie Parker. Often I click the heels of my Nikes together when talking to the police. I am a cricket crushed beneath a car's balding black tires. Most young kings return home without their heads. This is the last poem I'll read. And this, the title is a takeoff of Frank O'Hara. Frank O'Hara had a line in the poem where he says, "Someday I'll love Frank O'Hara." And I loved that in the poem. It was just like, yes, yes, that's exactly, like, I know that feeling, right? And so I took that and sort of ran with that. And so the title of this is "Someday I'll Love Roger Reeves." Until then, let us have our gods and short prayers, our obligations, our thigh bone connected to our knee bone, our dissections and our swans, our legs gashed upon a barbed wire fence and our heels tucked behind a lover's knees. Let us have a stalk of sugar cane to suck and another to tear our backs with what it knows of disaster and a tadpole's folly. Let us have mistakes and fish willing to come to a bell rung across a body of water. Let us have our drawbridges and our moats, our heavens no higher than a pile of dried leaves. Let us have irrelevance and a scalpel, a dislocated ankle and 3 more miles to run, a plastic bottle to hold nothing but last names and a chill. If none of this will be remembered, then let us keep speaking with tongues light as screen doors clapping shut on a child's finger. For this is love, to press one frame against another, and when something like a finger is found between this pressing, to press nevertheless. For this is our obligation. Let us forget our obligations. For this is love. Let us forget our love. Our eyelids need for beginnings and ends and blood, our coils of hunger that turn another into dried honey on our hands. And what if this goes on forever? Our hours, our drafts and fragments, our blizzards and our cancers. Then let us hold each other toward heaven and forget that we were once made of flesh, that this is the fall our gods refuse to clean with fire or water. Thank you.